let's add a custom Hostile Geckolib Entity to Minecraft. Alright, we find ourselves in IntelliJ once more, and in this tutorial we're going to be adding a custom Hostile Entity with Geckolib to Minecraft. This is an absolute banger of a topic, as the Hostile Entity, the real issue here is the attack animation. Now we'll not tackle the attack animation in this tutorial, but in the next tutorial, now we're basically going to set up Geckolib, import everything so that it works, and we're going to take a look at all of that. So first of all, of course, we have this beautiful chomper over here. This is the actual entity, and for that you just need to basically export the You need to export the GeoJSON file, the animation file, as well as the texture. Those are the three files that you need to basically export. I have a series on making this, particular entity here. You can just go to the export Geckolib model over here. That's going to be the GeoJSON file under the animation tab, animation, export animations. This is going to get you the animation JSON, as you can see, and then the texture you can just save by going right here. Basically, right click, you can do save as, and then you can just save the texture here as well, and those are the three files that you're going to need from Blockbench, and then we can proceed in IntelliJ. And with IntelliJ, I of course mean on GitHub here with the Geckolib repository, because we need to go all the way down to, there it is, Forge 119.1 or 2, because we need to add those different repositories in the dependency here so that we have access to Geckolib for our project, basically. So what we want to do is we just want to get this one here, so the Maven one, and then let's go here to our build.gradle file, and then down here in the repositories, right? So you can see we basically want to go all the way down to repositories, paste this in here, absolutely no worries. Then we want to go back, we can select this one, Control-C to copy it, and then paste this under here. So under the dependencies, we then want to place this one, and that's pretty much what we need to do. Now let's just load the Gradle changes. This can take, once again, as always, anywhere from a few seconds up to a minute, 2 minutes, depending on how fast your internet connection is, the PC, and all of that craziness, and whether or not you may or may not have downloaded this before, because I've already, of course, downloaded the, this version before. This is why this is probably going to be a little bit faster for myself. And then we go build successful in 52 seconds, exactly what you would expect to. And well, now we can basically proceed. The first thing to do in your main mod class constructor, right, in the tutorial mod constructor over here, what I just want to do is I just want to call geckolib.initialize. And this basically also shows that, okay, Geckolib is properly, added to our project, and everything should work totally fine. We do need to call this, so definitely don't forget that, and then we can basically proceed. In our tutorial mod package, right-click a new package called entity, and inside of there, we're going to make a new Java class called the mod entity types, and then we're going to make a new package here called custom, and inside of there, this is where the chomper entity class is going to go. There we go. Now we're going to start with the chomper entity, because that's going to be I would say the most complex one. This will extend the monster class, this one right here, from Net Minecraft World Entity Monster, and it will also implement the iAnimatable interface. If the interface is not available for you, this means that there's something wrong with the Geckolib installation for your project. So do keep in mind that this one is, of course, as you can see, right, from Geckolib. So if Geckolib is not properly added to your project, then this is not going to work. Right, so implement the methods from the interface. That is going to be the register controllers and the get factory method, and then create constructor matching super, and there we go. Then let's make this constructor public. That's actually very important, and then I'll start copying over piece by piece code, basically, and then I will explain. Very important, of course, as always, all of the code is available to you in the description below. GitHub repository and individual just as well. Let's start with the animation factory. This one is going to be basically always the same thing. When you have an iAnimatable, you're always going to have an animation factory, and it's always going to look like this, and you're always going to return it here in the get factory method. That's pretty much always going to be the case. Right, next, let's start with some other things, and that is going to be the attributes, for example. So let's just copy this over as well, the set attributes over here, and you can see this basically just sets the max health, the attack damage, it's the speed, and the movement as well. So nothing too crazy. This basically just sets some basic attributes. If you want to look into how other, mobs do things, or how their attributes are, all of that, I suggest you go to the monster class over your middle mouse button click. And for example, for the monster, you can just press Control-H when you click on it, and you can see every single, basically, like hostile entity that Minecraft ads, and you can even expand it even more, and you can see literally everything is in here. You can say, how does the zombie work? Absolutely no worries. Just go in there, and you can see this is the entire zombie class. So you have so much, so many different classes, so much code available for you to take a look at and try to understand how it works. So, of course, this is not easy. Oh, you can just go in here and immediately understand everything. Of course, there's a little bit of Java knowledge that, or maybe even a lot of Java knowledge that goes into there. But you can definitely see that there is a lot of stuff in here that you can use as blueprints for your own custom entities. Anyway, so those are the set attributes. That's going to be fine. But let's actually then continue along with, first of all, the Geckolib stuff. So, of course, we have the register controllers over here. Now, for this, what we're going to need is actually a predicate. I will copy this over, but it will pretty much look always like this. You can see it is a private. You can see it's a private method here that returns a play state, and we also have an animation event over here with an E. That's totally fine. That's pretty much always how the method signature looks like, and you can see when the actual entity, right, so this is event, but when the entity is moving, then what we're going to do is we're going to play the walk animation, and if it's not moving, then we're going to play the idle animation. That's basically all that happens here. And to basically do it properly in the register controls, we need to create a new controller, and that literally always looks like this. Data.animation animation controller, making a new controller over here called controller, and passing in the predicate method that we've just copied over. So that's pretty much always going to be that. And this is, at this moment in time, actually all the things that we need to do for the iAnimatable interface in the entity class. There's a few more methods that I just want to copy over just so that you have seen them before and that you understand them. And those are mainly the sound things, basically. You can see play sound step, get ambient sound, hertz sound, depth sound, sound volume. You can, of course, change this as you see fit to different sound events. Custom sound events would also work. So that would be a thing that you could do as well. To see all of the methods that you can override, you can, of course, also type in override. And then you're going to find, well, basically every method that you can override. I did say that entities are very complicated, and I think that this sort of shows what I mean by it, right? There is a lot of methods to possibly override, and I mean, I don't even know what all of those do or what's happening here. So it is a thing that is definitely for more seasoned, basically, modders, or not necessarily modders, but at least with, good, solid Java foundation. While I wouldn't necessarily say required, it is insanely suggested and insanely recommended. Right, so this is actually the entire entity class done. So let's just register our entity in the mod entity types class. So how is this going to look? Well, of course, we're going to have one of our favorite things again, and that is, of course, the deferred register of type entity type. This time, entity type of type question mark. Very important that this is done correctly. Entity underscore types equals to a deferred register dot create or registries dot entity types tutorial mod id. And I hear all of you scream where there is a deferred register. There, of course, is a register method over here with an iEvent bus. Call event bus, and we're going to call the entity types.register, passing in the event bus. And before we forget this, let's also add this to our constructor over here, mod entity types. There you go, register, and then passing in the mod event bus, and there we go. Now we can proceed to actually properly register the entity as a public static final registry object as per usual of type entity type of type chomper entity, called the chomper. Equal to entity types.register, the name chomper, that's exactly right, and then a supplier of entity type.builder of in the parentheses here chomper entity : new comma mob category monster in this case, of course, right? After the first closing parentheses, we want to do dot sized. Let's do 0.4f and 1.5f. Those numbers determine the hitbox of the entity, very important. And then we want to call build with a new resource location with tutorial mod id and the chomper as a name. And then after the first closing parentheses to string, and there we go. And then we can end it with a semicolon. As always, of course, all of the code available to you in the description below. GitHub repository and individual gist as well. And once this is registered over here, we can now actually also do the other thing that we need to do, and that is called a set attributes method. This is extremely important, right? So keep this in mind. we can see that this is now grayed out, so this is not being called. We have to set the attributes, otherwise if you spawn the custom entity, your game is going to crash if you don't set the attributes properly. So what we want to do is we want to go into the mod events class, and I'm actually going to change this class around a little bit. Now this might look a little bit weird at first, but don't worry about it, we're going to be fine. So inside of here, I'm going to make a new class, so public class, and this is going to be the Forge Events class, so Forge Events, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy over here and put it over the class here, and literally everything that is inside of here, I'm just going to take and put it into this class, right, the Forge class. So nothing here has changed really. Overall, it just is now inside of this class in this case. I will also make this static. That does make actually quite a lot of sense. Yep, there you go. And then we're going to make another class, public static class, and this is the mod event bus events. There you go. Now this will have the same attribute over here with a little bit of a different thing, and that is a second parameter, and that's going to be bus equal to mod.eventBusSubscriber.bus.mod instead of Forge. And then here we can finally create our event. That is the public static void entity attribute event. And we're going to do the entity attribute creation event. Very important. And inside of it, we're going to say event.put mod entity types dot chomper dot get, and then do chomper entity dot set attributes. There you go. And do not forget the subscribe event over here. This is exactly how this needs to look like, and then the attributes will be added as well. We can see this is now yellow, so this will be fine, and the entity class is done. The mod events class is also done. The mod entity types is also done, but what about the rendering? I hear you scream, absolutely. So in our entity package, right click, new package called client. I like to put this into the client package here, and we're going to have the chomper model. Writing this correctly would be definitely a little bit nicer. There you go, the chomper model, and then the second class is going to be the chomper renderer. There you go. We're going to start with the model here. This will extend the animated geo model of type chomper entity, and we can just hover over this, implement the methods over here, and those are just going to be 3 resource locations. I will copy those over, but they will be, they will make sense in very, very soon. You're going to be able to figure this out in no time. So you can see those point to the JSON file, the animation JSON file here, and the texture right here. So that's literally all that there's to it for the model. And where do we get those JSON files from and the texture file from? Well, those are all from Blockbench. This is what we've already exported from Blockbench, so we can now add those. So those go into the assets folder, tutorial mod folder, or whatever your mod ID is, new directory called geo. And we're going to get the geo.json file over here. Copy that over. There you go. And then the next one is going to be the textures. So textures entity. And then inside of the entity folder, just the chomper texture. There you go. Absolutely. And then last but not least, the animation one as well. So in the tutorial mod folder, once again, new directory, animations. Making sure that we write all of this correctly. And then the chomper animations file over here as well. There you go. So now all of those 3 files are in there and the model is done. And we can proceed to the renderer, and the renderer is actually fairly straightforward as well. This will just extend the geo entity renderer of type, once again, chomper entity. And we're just going to hover over this, create the constructor matching super. What we want to do is we want to delete the second parameter over here. Instead of the model provider, we want to make a new chomper model over here. We can also now set the shadow radius over here. Let's say for something like, 0.3 is going to be fine. So this is the shadow radius below the actual entity. And now we have 2 more methods that we can overwrite. So the first method that I actually want to overwrite is the getTextureLocation method. Now here, I'm just going to return the exact same texture that we're basically getting there as well. And then we also can overwrite the getRenderType method, which is pretty much a render method, which could be very, very useful for a lot of things. You can see there's a lot of parameters over here, but that's going to be fine. So here you can, because you have access to the post stack, you can do all sorts of craziness. So for example, we could scale the actual entity by, for example, like 80%. So we're just going to say that the entity is like only 80% the size that we've actually made it in Blockbench. There you go. And you can do all sorts of craziness because you have actually access to the chomper entity. So you could do, insane stuff like, if the entity has a certain value, then you can change the size or you can change the texture, all of that craziness. So there's a lot of stuff you can do in this method, but that is pretty much what we are going to do in this case. Now we still need to register the renderer. This is also extremely important in the tutorial mod class. In the client mod events over here, FML client setup event, what we want to do is we want to say entity renderers, this one right here, dot register mod entity types dot chomper dot get, and then render, and then the chomper renderer : new. No errors should be present if everything is done right. If you do get an error, double check your constructors over here that they have the correct amount and the correct types of parameters. Right, and for completion's sake, in theory now the entity is done, but just for completion's sake, let's also add the spawn egg over here, because that sometimes is a thing that people ask for as well, and we of course wanted to do that as well. Let's just copy over the Kaupenjoe, that's going to be fine. This is the chomper underscore spawn underscore egg, and then the name here as well, of course, chomper underscore spawn underscore egg. This is a very important forge spawn egg item, extremely important that you choose the correct one. The first parameter is going to be the entity that it spawns. So, of course, mod entity types.chomper, actually without the get. That's also very important. Then we have a background color. We're just going to do something like this. This is going to be a green over here in hex, of course. And then we're going to do another one that's 19732E. I've already tried those out, and those are going to be okay. Making sure that this actually stacks to 64. And that is the item registered. And then when it comes to, well, of course, this is a normal item, so we still need the translation here. There you go, nothing crazy, chomper spawn egg. And then when it comes to the item model, that is actually a very interesting one, but also not complex. You can see, of course, just called chomper spawn egg over here, and it actually just refers to Minecraft item template spawn egg. And that's going to be filled in with the colors that we have specified right here. I think I was a little over enthusiastic over here because there is actually one more thing we need in the entity class, and that is, of course, I mean, pretty much one of the most important things. I've not overlooked this. I've, of course, just wanted to test whether or not you're going to figure it out or not. Well, it is, of course, the goals method over here, because we still need the register goals method. Let's just override this one. We don't need to call the super. And, well, I'm just going to copy over the contents of this and quickly explain over here. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a float goal, a melee attack goal, water avoid random store goal, and a random look around goal. You can see those have priorities. The lower the number, the higher basically the priority. So it's first of all going to float, and then it's going to melee attack, and so on and so forth. And then we also, you can see those are different selectors. So this is a goal selector, and this is a target selector. Because, for example, for the melee attack goal, what we need is we need a target. And the target selector basically selects the target based on this particular nearest attackable target goal. When it comes to the goals, we're not going to go into extreme detail next tutorial. We're just going to make a custom melee attack goal so that we basically have the attack animation as well. But what I can say is that if you want a custom AI or custom entity AI, basically, number one, this can be extremely complicated, so you need proper Java knowledge to do this. That you can't just go in there, say like, oh, I've done like 3 Java tutorials and that's probably going to be fine. Absolutely no, like I don't think so. It's not going to be a thing. But what we can do is we can go to the goal class over here, press Ctrl H, and take a look at every single vanilla goal that is being used or has been created. You can see there are so many different goals over here. You have, I mean, so much stuff that you can take a look at, try to understand, and this is like just vanilla. Like, let's not even start talking about, all of the things that you can look into other mods and their goals, but this is just vanilla goals. I cannot stress this enough. You have to take a look at these goals and try to basically look at them, how they work. You can say, okay, let's try this out, and just try stuff out. This is like the best thing to be open to experimentation that there is. So do take a look at this, and then you're probably going to be fine. Now, after having the register goals over here, now we're finally done, and we can finally take a look at the chomper entity in-game. Alright, so we find ourselves in Minecraft, and let's first of all see there is the chomper spawn egg has been added, and let's also get a villager and a creeper, because those are actually 2 of the entities that the chomper will attack. Let's spawn it, and there we go. So the island animation is already playing, and we actually saw the walking animation did also play. It's very subtle, but you can see the legs are moving. Let's just spawn a few more, just so that you can see like when you can actually saw it there as well. So the walking animation definitely does play. Now, when I spawn the villager, they're going to attack, but there's not going to be an attack animation, but they are going to attack it. So as you can see, that does work. they don't seem to be, you know, having that much attack damage, but fair enough. Let's also go into survival mode. You can see they're immediately going to attack me as well. Okay, that's, no, that's terrifying. Let's attack the creeper as well. Oh, it's going to blow up. All right, so that's, that was an interesting, I didn't expect that one, but that was very funny indeed. Now, so as you can see, at least the Chomper definitely does work, and, well, I mean, the two animations work. It is in-game. Well, it works, it has sounds, all of that craziness. And, well, next time we're then going to also add the attack animation when it attacks an entity, right? So, because now it's just, like, walking towards it and, you know, something happens, and then there's going to be another, basically, attack there as well. So, very interesting indeed. And, yeah, that's how easy it can be to add a custom entity to Minecraft. All right, that's going to be it for this tutorial right here. Hope you found this useful and you learned something new, and I'll see you all in the next tutorial. So, yeah.